morning, everyone. I'm Laura Belmonte, the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Human Sciences at Virginia Tech. And I'm joined today by Bill Roth, a professor of practice in our School of Communications. And we'll be having a dialogue this morning. And because we are both in our own personal spaces, we are following all the health guidelines per university policy. We are going to now take our masks off before we have this virtual conversation.
Hello.
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
Well, it's nice to be with you and talk about what's going on campus for all of our friends and some students out there as well. I love your mask, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I had it made on Etsy so I can be Hokified and safe at the same time. So
I've noticed since your arrival at Tech, you are certainly Hokified.
I have a whole section of my closet with nothing but Hokie gear now. So, and it seems to expand all the time. So
I can relate. Mine expands both ways, the volume and the size.
The dreaded COVID-19. Yeah. So what are you drinking this morning, Bill? I am enjoying a nice chai in the brand new hot off the presses School of Communication mug.
I love your new mug. Yeah, those have just arrived. We're so excited about the School of Communication. It's such a big step in what we're doing, and our students are excited, our alums are excited. Clearly all the faculty has been energized by it, and it's been a fun semester in some ways. It's been the most unusual semester I think we've all experienced, but it's been fun, and that's been
well. And I'm thrilled about the transition to the school, and really look forward to working with the faculty and leadership so we can grow the school. I mean, we have a really high student demand for programs like multimedia journalism and our new sports media and analytics program. You have made quite a transition yourself, having been the voice of the Hokies for many years, and then moving into this professor of practice position in the school. How has that transition been?
You know, some ways it's very similar. I look at each of my appearances in a classroom or getting ready to talk with people, our students, almost as if I'm getting ready to do one of our television shows. I formatted out, I think, you know, on television, we worry about time spent viewing, and on radio, we would always look at time spent listening. In the classroom, it's the attention span. I can tell, I can look in their eyes, I can tell when I'm losing them. And so I look at each 90-minute or sometimes shorter than that class, almost as if I'm putting a show together. Down just like I do when I'm doing a show today too. So it's been fun. You know, we're all in the storytelling business, right? Whether we are doing play-by-play, whether we're anchoring, whether we're doing a report, whether we're doing a podcast, or whether we're instructing. And so our job is to communicate, relate, and tell stories. And so that's what I do.
Well, I will say from personal experience last spring that doing the play-by-play is far harder than doing this. So lots of
I don't know. We got Dean Belmonte in with a group of our SMA students to actually call a game. What was the most challenging thing for you? The pronunciations?
No, the pronunciations were easy. I read names at graduation for several years at my previous institution, so I had practice with that. And I think your students were kind of surprised at how readily I got. But then they pounced me and made me shoot baskets, which I was not expecting, but was fun. I would have worn different shoes had I known I was going to be expected to do that. It's just how quickly things move on for the game, and there really is a tremendous amount of skill in memorizing the different statistics about players and teams and standings in the league, and really keeping it colorful and fast paced, because of course there are people who are watching the game, but there are people who are only listening, and really making that come alive requires a really terrific ability to think on your feet. I was extraordinarily impressed with the two students I worked with that day.
Well, they've done a really nice job. We've had more and more kids come to Tech. You know, now we're giving kids who are high school kids and middle school kids now a reason not to leave the state to go to college to study sports media, sports journalism. And some of the kids, in fact, all of the kids that you had a chance to visit with are all in-state kids. They're all from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Each went to VHSL high schools, and they've had some experience And that's what's so exciting about what we're building now at Tech, is that the kids from, not that we don't love our out-of-state students as well, because we certainly do, but we're the only school in the Commonwealth of Virginia and the only one in the ACC now that's offering a sports media analytics major. And so that gives us a leg up, and it's a great thing for these young people.
Absolutely. And I know Evan Hughes won a big award. I mean, they're doing really well in this brand new program, and that's really exciting for us. So tell us a bit about why the transition from a Department of Communication to a School of Communications, which was approved by the Board of Visitors in August. Why is that such a milestone for our program?
Well, it added, there's so many answers to that question. I think it added some legitimacy to what we're doing. I can't thank you and Tim Sands and our Board of Visitors enough for believing in what we are doing, but more so believing in our students who understand what their work. And I tell them all the time, Laura, I said, this is your program. You are going to be the degree holders. You are the alums. It's really your program. We're just kind of the gatekeepers, and we're kind of steering you along, kind of cheering you along, and making sure that the rowboat doesn't get off course. But as long as you keep rowing hard as students, we'll keep cheering hard as the coxswain, so to speak, in the back of the boat. But when it became a school, it really legitimized what we were doing. And the reaction among the students was amazing to see, the pride they're taking in it, the pride that they are taking in their work. The powers that be, all the way from the administration in Burris, all the way to the Board of Visitors, all the way to the Commonwealth, Chev, the state agency, buying into what our kids are doing, it gave them a tremendous boost. And we're going to be able to recruit and attract even more young men and women from around the country to come to Tech now because of it.
Well, I really was so pleased to have the opportunity to help with this transition. And Bob Denton, the school director, I know had been trying for several years to get proposal buy-in from the dean's office. And I think he was about 30 seconds into his pitch when I said, Bob, I'm in. And I think he almost fell over in my office. And I'm so glad that we have reached this point and really bestowed a level, the structure here really connotes a level of prestige that, really indicates where we are with our peer and peer aspirant institutions.
Yeah, and you mentioned Dr. Denton, who has been the leader through all of this, and his work is just incredible. And folks, whether you are a student, you are aware of Dr. Bob, whether you are a political junkie who watches the news on Channel 7, the CBS affiliate in Roanoke, you're familiar with Dr. Bob, but the faculty that have been at Tech for over the years in comm have worked so hard. And I'm really, I omitted them before. I'm so happy for them because they have worked so hard over the years. And our alums who are out there working now, they look back at what the School of Communication now is at Tech with such pride right now because they laid the groundwork, right? They got this thing going. So many of them are working in different professional endeavors now, in and out of communication. But the alums that we have, I hear from so many of them. They're so delighted to see what we're doing on campus now.
I hear from them too, and we have wonderful things to celebrate here. So you talked about our alums and the many career paths they're taking. And of course, 2020 has been filled with a bottomless pit of things we've all had to adjust to. How are you and your colleagues adjusting what you teach and how you teach it to preparing our students, especially those who are going to graduate next semester, to really enter a workforce under dramatically different circumstances than they would have faced less than 2 years ago?
Well, candidly, we talk about this all the time. In fact, we're probably spending more time now talking about the current work environment and the post-COVID pandemic work environment, how to get a job. We know jobs in journalism are shrinking. Our students know that, for example, ESPN cut 300 positions last week. That's challenging. We know that newspapers are downsizing in Virginia and throughout the country. So it's a challenging time. But we focused on a couple of things. We talk about it a lot. because it's not just journalism, it's not just broadcasting and communication that's had the problem. Aerospace engineering has issues right now. The hospitality industry has issues right now. Just about every industry, unless you are, making nasal swabs, has been affected negatively. So, well, we've talked about a couple of things. Number one, we're all sitting at a red light. And by we, I mean all of us, right? Right now, the NBA is not playing. So if you are an NBA player or coach or broadcaster or official referee, you're not working right now. So we're all stopped at the same red light. And what we've talked about is when the light turns green, be ready to go, because it's going to turn green. And when it turns green, I want you all to be able to hit the accelerator and really go. And that means having your resume, having your demo reel, having everything ready to go to jump into the job market. So we've talked about that over and over and over. And then the other thing, I'm big into symbolism. I talk about the toolbox. I want all our kids to have a toolbox full of skills, that you just don't be a broadcaster. You're not just a writer. You're able to do both. So the kids that want to be writers, I put them in front of a camera a lot. And those that want to be in front of a camera, I make them write a lot. And all of them, we're so blessed at Tech. I'll give you an example of one thing we are doing here that not every school does, thanks to the support that we're getting university-wide, is that every student in our comm program gets the complete Adobe suite of software on her or his laptop. Not every school does that. And so every student in our program knows Photoshop. Every student in our program knows InDesign. They can design graphics. They know how to edit in Adobe Audition, audio. They know how to edit in Adobe Premiere, video. And they may sound like really technical to a lot of people, but I want our kids to be able to do everything, so that if they're offered a job by a minor league baseball team and that general manager says, can you, whatever he asks, can you build graphics? Can you do social media as well as broadcast? The answer is yes. And so we talk an awful lot about a toolbox. Bud Foster in the Tech defense always used to have a lunch pail, kind of to symbolize what they want. I want a big toolbox, so that no matter what a potential employer asks someone at Tech, can you do this? That their answer is yes.
Well, that's a good segue to my next question, which is, what is special about our new sports media and analytics major? And what are the core skills and learning outcomes you aim for our graduates to have?
Well, Tech is so unique. We've got a great passion for sports at Tech and in our community. Sports are important at Virginia Tech, more than just cheer for the team. It's more than just root for the home team. It's more part of the culture of our campus. Whenever we've had a tragedy at Tech or any misfortune, sports has healed us. And I'm hoping that will happen again with when we pack Lane Stadium at some point, again with our fans. But going back to the shooting, athletics at Tech is really important, and it translates itself into our academic sphere in a really big way. And when kids come to Virginia Tech, and I should mention, studying sports media, sports journalism at Tech, we don't sit around and talk sports. It's almost like if you went to a law school and studied sports law, we're not sitting around discussing your fantasy league team. You learn law, and we're teaching journalism, and we're teaching how to write, how to cover events, because we have the First Amendment on the wall in our comm school, and we should probably make it bigger. We should probably etch it on the windows across the comm. So we talk a lot about the importance of the media, how to cover events, how to be fair, how to see through the noise, and what makes a good journalist.
Terrific. So you talk a lot about the role of sports at VT. What are some of the ways that you've seen the Hokie Nation pull together despite the pandemic to keep our athletics community going?
Well, I wish we could fill our stadium. This is so sad, but I'll give you an example. We have a young man at Tech named Jack, and Jack won the Rich Murray Scholarship as the top journalism student in the Commonwealth of Virginia last year. And he came to Tech. And I am convinced that 10 years ago, Jack would have gone to Medill. He would have gone to Northwestern, or he would have gone to Syracuse, or he would have gone to a traditional J school to study journalism. But he came to Virginia Tech. Great student, tremendous writer. He's going to be a big star. And could have gone anywhere. He had the grades to go anywhere, but he came to Tech. And Jack has been at Lane Stadium during his freshman year twice. He's been to Lane Stadium twice, both times to get a COVID test. And this breaks my heart because Lane Stadium is one of the great cathedrals of college football. Lane Stadium is the focal point that brings kids together more than just socially, right? We all know that, right? Culturally. But for this freshman class, Lane Stadium is a lab to have a swab stuck up your nose. And that breaks my heart. But his attitude on this has been amazing, Laura. He's like, I know I will be jumping up and down in that north end zone next year. I know it. And so in a weird way, all our freshmen, all our sophomores go to the stadium to get their test. And there's thousands of kids lined up to do this. And it's bringing them together. And so even when we're not playing, Lane Stadium has a way to bring us together. But that's just been that's one story of how one of our young freshmen is handling this transition.
So let's talk about the pandemic and the impact on college sports more generally. You know, I read very avidly higher education news, and I know there are some schools like William and Mary and Stanford that have cut lots of sports teams, not, you know, mostly due to budget restrictions that have resulted from the pandemic. But we're seeing changes like the NCAA announcing yesterday that the March Madness will be in one place. And I wonder what your thoughts are on what the long-term impact on college sports might be once we exit the pandemic, which will hopefully be in the next few months.
That is a great question. You ask very good questions. In fact, if you were in our sports journalism program, we would give you A+ here. You're a very good interviewer. No, but you know, it's funny because it's a great question. Here's why. You know, things happen post 9/11 that we still do today, right? Airport security, some of the things that we do, right? TSA, that kind of thing. Okay. I think things will come out of COVID in athletics that we keep doing down the line. So, for example, Zoom interviews. I think we'll continue to see Zoom interviews even when we can do in person. I think recruiting will change. Athletic administrators with an eye on the bottom line. And by the way, what administrator does not have an eye on the bottom line, regardless of what department he or she is in? But
tell me about
maybe
it.
We don't. Yeah, you know, maybe we don't go to conferences as much. Maybe we do more virtual conferences. Recruiting. So one of the things that I really like to do is I'm looking to get a lot of young ladies and gentlemen that are in high school and interested in our program. So I've done a lot of these Zoom calls with parents, and it's not as personal as being one-on-one. But what it does do is mom and dad are sitting in front of a laptop in Connecticut or New York or even out in Seattle, and we're able to be in Blacksburg and talk and show them things. And no, it's not the same as being there, but they can look at 3 or 4 campuses in a week without leaving. And so I think it'll give us an opportunity moving forward to use some more of our technology. And I think, for example, in football, I think spring football will change. I think coaches like the way spring football was handled last year. I think they felt it was a little bit more effective, even though there weren't spring games. I could see some teams moving forward, maintaining this COVID model even after the pandemic ends.
Interesting. How has the pandemic impacted your work inside and outside of the classroom?
Well, you know, Robin Reed and I are the professors of practice. So we're on the air every week. You know, Robin's on the almost every day. He is on the air every day doing the news in Roanoke. And I'm flying all over the country doing games for ESPN. And by the way, we both get critiqued when we get back on Monday. You know, the students, you know, we've had to do a lot of technology-based interviews and doing games remotely. Instead of sitting at the arena or the stadium to call a game, you're calling it off of a home kit. And our students are doing that in our 3304 sports platform. They're sitting in front of they set up a big screen TV. They have 2 or 3 iPads and 2 or 3 laptops, and they broadcast the game because there is no media at the game. The TV broadcasters, they're not at the game, and our kids aren't at the game this semester either. So that's been an impact for them. But it's a skill that they've had to learn and to adjust. That's something else they have in their toolkit, right? In their toolbox, the ability to adjust on the fly.
Right. Well, you talk about recruiting. We've seen on the academic side of the college that one way in which the virtual universe has worked really well is advising. Our students tell us that they like to be able to connect with their advisor from wherever they are. For some of the guest lecturers we have from around the world, broadcasting those events via Zoom is giving us much larger and broader audiences that we've had. And I can easily see that being something that's permanently integrated into academic life as we move forward from extracting what best practices and lessons learned are from this very challenging year we've all had.
Yeah, and we grew up and we were educated in a different environment. They're used to the digital world, right? They're used to consuming so much of their information off of
True enough.
Not that it's better or worse, it's just different, but it is in so many ways what they're used to. And there are some classes and there are some, you have to be there. You have to be with the person. However, there are some instances where digital does work, particularly in the media, particularly when we're doing shows and people are judging you by what you look like on the screen to begin with. So for our students, if they're putting together a package on television, if they're doing a show, well, they're doing that for the screen anyway. So we're plugging along in a way that I think is working for them. I hope so. And we've gotten such great support from the university, and all the faculty and the comm are working so hard because we're the ones that have to adjust here. The students are used to consuming off a screen.
Right. So we've all had to be very creative, sports teams in general, and in anything from placing cardboard cutouts in stadium seats to sharing monitors with images of cheering fans. Do you think any of those changes create opportunities for teams moving forward to enhance the fan experience of athletics? I
do. I mean, clearly we want to have real fans and not cardboard cutouts. But I think, and the savvy businessman, the savvy financial types out there will figure a way to profit off of this. I don't know. Are we going to have virtual kiosks throughout campus now to follow games? Are we going to have hand washing stations everywhere now? Are we going to have masks, Hokie masks? A playing mask is $9. You put a VT on it, it's $39, right? So I mean, there's a way to profit off of it, I guess. But I think it's going to be fascinating to see going forward what the sports world looks like on the marketing side, which was your question. What will they do to be creative moving forward in this? I don't know that. One of the things that we did see is that attendance in college football was going down over the last couple of years, nationwide. And will stadiums still, when it opens back up, let's say it opens up next fall, will Penn State get 108,000 people to jam their stadium? Will Lane Stadium have 66,000 people in it? I mean, really have that many, like jammed in there? Well, are people ready for that yet? Or will people say, you know what? I kind of like watching everything on my television and not paying for a booster club seat license and waiting in line and driving. I think that'll be really curious to see the bounce back. I think we'll be okay at Tech, but I'm not so sure that will be the nationwide result.
Well, we'll certainly have to see. I know speaking for myself, I can't wait to be back in the suite and doing Enter Sandman. And there's just an entirely different energy about experiencing sports with a live crowd of cheering people than sitting and watching it on my, albeit very nice, flat screen TV alone in my living room. It's a very different experience. So Bill, we really appreciate you taking the time to spend some time with me this morning, and it's been a delight to get to catch up with you. I look forward to getting to work with you and your students again soon.
Oh, we love it. And I can't thank you enough on behalf of all of us. The energy and the passion that you have brought. Look, attitude determines altitude. Not to sound like a poster in the mall, but we talk about that a lot. That, you know, being a college kid can be hard, right? Going away to college, you know, you're doing your laundry for the first time, you're cooking for the first time, mom and dad aren't there, whatever, all those things, right? And it can be hard on kids, and it can be easy to get down. And we talk about it all the time. You know, I play almost like warm-up music in my classes before we start every time, just to pump everybody up, because it can be hard. But attitude is what makes things happen. If you have a great attitude and a positive view of everything, regardless of what it is, and to solve problems, you can succeed. And you're bringing that, right? You have brought that attitude, and everyone notices it, right? Everyone on your staff and across the college and across the campus is aware of the positive energy that you're bringing. And, you know, positive energy is contagious, and you're bringing that. And so I do appreciate that a big.
Well, that's awfully nice of you to say, Bill. It's easy to have positive energy when you love what you're doing and where you're doing it at. And I am thrilled and honored each day to have the opportunity to lead this college and be at Virginia Tech. So I thank you for sharing that. It makes, you know, it's nice that people pick up on that, because it is very genuine.
Well, and I learned from you, and I hope our kids learn. Hey, do you know we have 200 high school kids that have applied to SMA, Sports Media and Analytics at Virginia Tech? 200 kids. Where are we going to put all these people? Where are we going to put all these kids? They want to come to Virginia Tech and study this. What a day! What a time to be a Hokie.
That is exciting. I'll have to put that on my priorities list and figure it out. Well, thank you so much, Bill. I hope you have a terrific day, and good luck with the rest of the semester. And I am just look forward to seeing the impending explosion of our sports media and analytics program.